Hi friends, David here from Learn Stage Lighting, and in this video we're going to show you which one of these lights you should choose if you're looking for an LED house light. No secret that if you walk into any venue, primarily, specifically churches a lot, but also music venues, places like that, the first thing you want if you're moving into a space like that and you work with lighting, if you are a lighting designer, is you want to be able to control those lights, right? And back in the old days when the dinosaurs roamed the earth, I know, I'm not that old, but we used dimmers, we had DMX dimmers typically, that could hook up to regular old light bulbs with screw-in bulbs, and you could dim them up and down. Today, more and more places go to an LED-based fixture with DMX control for a couple reasons. The first is that putting LED screw-in bulbs in a socket for an incandescent and using a standard dimmer for them isn't the best idea. Even the good dimmers, like the ETC UFDs, which are a really popular single-channel dimmer, and other dimmers from ETC, they're known as the best dimmer out there for dimming LED bulbs, okay? And even they don't dim perfectly. Why? Because LED bulbs aren't supposed to be, the technology just really doesn't work because the circuit board in the LED needs power in order to function. If you're dimming the power to zero, you're cutting it all out. It's just not a great idea. Thus, many places have LED-based house lights. We want to talk about them. And in particular, we've been getting a lot of questions about LED house lights here at Learn Stage Lighting and at Learn Stage Lighting Gear, and how to choose them for your space. So in this video, I want to talk about, okay, why don't you just grab one of these regular old lights? This is the Gamma Starburst PAR, a PAR that we like a lot. Why don't you just grab one of these guys, hang it up in the air, and then knock your power con cable off your table, and then, just run with that. Why don't you just hang a regular stage fixture and use that as a house light? Is that a bad idea? Is it a good idea? What do you think? Okay. Why should you have one of these cylinder-looking things that, cost more, right? Because ultimately, at the end of the day, you want to get the right thing for your facility, but you don't want to spend more than you have to, right? If there's a version of it that's, 70% of the cost and will do everything you need and be reliable, then you should go with that. Okay, so let's talk about first some of the differences between these house light type fixtures, which these two are, and a regular PAR. The first thing about a regular PAR is there's a couple of things that really don't make it good for house lighting. Let me grab real quick my cord, plug this guy in. And so there's a couple things that really don't make these good for house lighting, okay? For example, if we turn it on here, get it into an auto mode. Yeah, I was able to turn this on and get a really nice white out of it. And if we shine it over there on the wall, it looks pretty good, right? It's got a defined spot, but it's fairly soft because this is a nicer PAR. Cheaper PARs, as you go cheaper, have a really bright spot in the center. And then as you go out from there, it gets, it gets way dim and hangs off. And it's, it's not bad, but it's also not very forgiving, okay? So that's the first thing. If you hang this and you just want to hang this as a house light in your space, okay? And you want this to shine down over your space, and be a smooth, even coverage across your whole floor area, then this is not going to do it for you because ultimately, from where it's really bright to where it's completely gone is a really tight area. And so hanging these and getting a bunch of this type of light together is not going to be good. In fact, there's math we can do that we can kind of justify this, and we can look at basically the beam angle versus the field angle, okay? And the beam angle is, oh my goodness, my brain's failing me right now. The area within, I believe, 40–50% of the light, so most of the light is concentrated, and then the field angle is where the circle, where the 10% of the light, or 90% of the light rather, is within, okay? And when we compare those two, a lot of the time, a standard par like this guy is going to be like a 25-degree beam angle and then a 40-degree field angle, or 25-35 or 25-30, something where those numbers are pretty close together, okay? The other reasons why we don't like fixtures like this is these par-type fixtures are generally not designed to hang facing straight down for long periods of time and be on all the time. That's just not what they're designed to do. The electronics aren't designed that way. The cooling isn't necessarily designed for 100% all the time. And so those types of units may fail prematurely. Again, that's unit by unit. Every par is going to be different, and we really like these starburst pars from Gamma. But, it's still not an ideal house light, okay? So next we've got here 2 house lights, okay? This first one is the brand new ADJ COB Cannon with the lime. It's the LP200ST. And let's fire that guy on, and I believe I've got it in a static color already set up. Yep. So here we see something a good bit different when we look at our wall. First of all, we have a good bit more spread, typically a wider angle. The next thing we can see is kind of as the edge fades off from where it's brighter, it is a smoother changeover. Okay, these Cob Cannons are pretty good as house lights. They are fan cooled with a temperature controlled fan that comes on indeed when it's warm enough. Now that's not going to be running all the time, but it is something that if you have a lot of them in the room, you might start to hear that fan noise a little bit. Again, they're not loud, but that is something to be concerned with. Okay, and so then I want to take a look at here. This is the Gamma Penn House Light Fixture. We've had a lot of people use these because they're a really great fixture. And just looking at the beam here, again, we've got it in a manual mode. Just looking at the beam here, when we compare these three, just in a quick comparison like we're doing today, the Penn by far has the smoothest beam, the smoothest, softest edge to it. It just is so smooth from where the brighter spot is in the center to as it smooths out to the next fixture. And we really like that because that means that the Penn is really in a typical house light. We also do the elation fuse pendant from time to time. These fixtures that are a dedicated house light fixture are generally cooled either completely or totally without fans, just by these heat sinks on the outside. And the beam is just so forgiving because from where it's at full brightness to where it fades out softly is typically double. So the beam angle to field angle ratio is that the field angle is about double the beam angle. And this means that it's really soft, really smooth, really forgiving. If you get into your space and you start hanging the lights or seeing where you can hang them and one of them has to move for an air vent, and it's a few feet off, it really doesn't like mess everything up. It looks a little odd in the air, but overall it's not a huge deal because these are really forgiving, okay? And so in a house light, those are the most important things, I think, are the light type characteristics, right? Is the light physically able to do the job, right? Does it make that nice, smooth angle of light where the beam angle to field angle is a really big difference so that it looks really smooth? Does it make good colors? For example, this par here has this is actually an RGB lime par, but maybe it's an RGB white or an RGB or a hex RGB white, amber, UV. Okay, that means if it has 20 watt LEDs in it, and it has a bunch of those, that means that 20 watts is shared equally upon those bunch of colors, okay? With a house type fixture, for example, the Penn, I know this for sure, half the LEDs in it of this Gamma Penn are white, okay? So half the wattage, half the brightness approximately, even though wattage to brightness is not quite exact science, but about half the brightness is in the white LEDs, and the other half is separated in the red, green, and blue, okay? And so when you use a dedicated house fixture, you're going to get more white brightness, and then color brightness might not be as high, which generally is exactly what you want, right? Because when you're in an event, that's when you use the colors. That's when there's people on stage. It doesn't have to be as bright. When you're doing walk in and walk out, or people are taking notes, you're going to go in white. You want that maximum brightness. Some fixtures, like this new COB Cannon with the lime, has lime LEDs in it. Now, lime LEDs are great because it's like a light green, and our eyes have a bump in the spectrum. It's actually a pretty big bump where you're more sensitive to picking up green tones. For that reason, when you bring lime into a fixture, and a lot of manufacturers are doing this, you up the color quality, okay? So you get a higher color quality, which means colors look more natural, skin tones look more natural, etc. Okay? Not to say that RGBW, especially if it has a good white with good color quality, don't offer that. So the lime often just gives you a slightly better bump. Okay? And then the last thing, when we talk about the difference between stage fixtures and fixtures for house lights, is the ease of installation. Okay? So most of your stage fixtures are going to have a yoke like this. You can turn it, and this COB Cannon has it too, right? And that allows you to tilt the light in different directions. Well, when you have a house light, there's generally no need to do this or to do this, right? You just need it to face down, and you want it to do that forever and to be perfectly face down. So a lot of dedicated house fixtures, again, like the Gamma Penn series, they don't have that adjustment. They're just not there. Because ultimately, there's no need to do that, or if you had the need to do that, you could do that within your hanging hardware, but that would be a special exception, not typical. The other thing besides the yokes is these green Phoenix connectors. So if you're not familiar with Phoenix connectors, we'll show you on the other camera here. They are a green connector. You can pop them out, and they have places for you to insert a screwdriver. You open them up, that's the first thing you do. You hold the screwdriver in there, push the wires in, tighten it back down. Okay? When it comes to installing house light fixtures, that is way faster than soldering custom length DMX cables. And also, typically, if you're talking about making cables or having someone do it for you, a lot of times electricians will end up wiring the data and power to these lights, okay? And most electricians are typically going to be great with terminal blocks, but they will not solder. They won't do the XLR plugs, the 3 or 5 pin. So for that reason, a lot of dedicated house lights come with terminal blocks on them because it makes for an easier install, and it also saves money. I mean, a good 3 or 5 pin plug is a few dollars each, right? That you'd have to have on that cable and on the fixture. So you save the money on the fixture purchase of those 2 connectors using a cheaper Phoenix connector. Then you save that like $6 for DMX in and out with the cables going into it. And if they're never going to unplug, if it's permanently installed, there's no need for it. So Phoenix connectors for the win. One more thing to mention when we're talking about house fixtures is these type of fixtures, which are a larger fixture, though the Penn does come in a mini, which is an 80 watt. They're typically good for ceilings of, say, 12 to 25, 30, even 60 feet or more, okay? At that point, there's different lensing. The higher you go, you can get narrower lenses and still cover a space really well, okay? So these types of fixtures are great for those kind of distances. But if you have a spot where maybe it's an under balcony, a lobby, even some offices where you want full control of LED fixtures, but you just don't have that height, you might be at 12 feet, 10 feet, even as low as about 8 feet. There are options that are low voltage where you can actually install a brain, basically a power supply in a rack or on a wall somewhere, and then send out just Cat 6. Usually it's Cat 6 23 gauge, which is not, you gotta make sure you get the right stuff. And you can send out those wires to provide power to these fixtures. There's a lot of brands that have them. One that we've really found we like are the Megalight Deco series, which we have a video on here. Okay, So be sure to check that out. If you've got those lower ceilings, a lot of times these make sense. They have recessed cans that go into drywall like a typical LED recessed can. They have pendant type fixtures, even these little par type fixtures for like washing artwork on the walls, and some other cool strips and LED neon and stuff like that. So if you've got a space with those lower ceilings, but you still want that full control of a high quality source, be sure to check out those Megalight Deco fixtures, because they're a really great option. And just like we talked about with all these, in the next video, we'll also talk about how to figure out what's right for you, if that's right, or something bigger like these. Other than that, guys, that about wraps it up for today. Now, be sure to come back next week. I'm going to be over at the computer, and I want to talk to you about how to design house lighting. How in the world do you know how to lay out your space and go, okay, this is how many lights I need. We work with people doing this all the time over at Learn Stage Lighting Gear. So if you have any questions about any of these lights, or how to figure out which one's right for you, how many you need, that's exactly what you do. But in next week's video, I'll also show you the process that we take in order to help you figure that out, and show you a cool tool we've developed to make that easier. Thanks so much for watching. Have a great day, and we'll see you guys in our next video. Thanks.